Impact segment tonight, defining Sergeant Bo Bergdahl. As we reported, there's enough evidence to call him a deserter, but more than that, gets dicey. Fox News chief Washington correspondent James Rosen has been examining evidence that the sergeant might have collaborated with the Taliban. He joins us now from Washington. So you know what I'm saying here. You got to be real careful when you get into these waters. What do you think? Well, let me pose it a different way. Based upon what you have seen, the evidence that you have examined, how would you define Sergeant Bergdahl?
Probably in some respects as a kind of modern-day Lee Harvey Oswald, a confused figure, a kind of inept figure by many accounts. But I stand by my reporting. What we got our hands on were real-time dispatches that Fox News obtained from something called the Eclipse Group. It's a private intelligence firm retained by the Pentagon as a subcontractor in the search for Bergdahl. Their situation reports, or SITREPs, represent the best, most detailed accounts we've seen yet so far, Bill, of Sergeant Bergdahl's 5 years in captivity. They contain the actual names of the men who controlled him, what tribe they belonged to, what rank they held in the Haqqani network, where exactly they held him and when. These details are all in these reports. One last point. The head of the Eclipse network says he sent these reports to the chief of intelligence at CENTCOM. It defies imagination that that brigadier general would have just sat on these reports when the Bergdahl case was of such a top priority. Indeed, one former senior intelligence officer who read all these reports confirmed to Fox News that what I reported is consistent with what he read.
All right, who is the commander in question now who says he didn't get him?
Well, this person hasn't replied to our request for comment.
You want to name him tonight, or you don't?
Sure, yeah. We've been naming him all day. His name is General Robert Ashley. He was, at the time, the Chief of Intelligence for U.S. CENTCOM, Central Command. He's now the commanding officer at Fort Huachuca. And we put in 2 requests to hear back from him.
All right. Now, according to this report, there are a mixture of actions by Sergeant Bergdahl. Number one, he tried to escape, correct?
Right. Correct.
Okay.
More than once, yeah.
More than once.
In fact, got away for 5 days before being recaptured.
Okay. Was put in a cage because of that, shackled,
right.
All that. That doesn't show a man who's collaborating. But, on the other hand, in the same report, there are eyewitnesses who told this intelligence group that he did carry a weapon and do things that would indicate he was a collaborator. So what I'm saying, Rosen, is you've got 2 polar opposite reports in this under the same banner. How do you process that?
Well, because the reports are stretched out over time. They span the ones that we got our hands on, 2009 to 2012. Look, as you know, Bill, there are some people out there whose full-time occupation is as professional givers of flack to Fox News. Despite what they're saying and tweeting about me, nowhere have I reported that Sergeant Bergdahl was actively collaborating with the enemy. However, I have reported concerns to that effect in the intelligence community, and some anecdotal evidence has begun accruing to that effect. It would be ethically dicey to use your preferred journalistic lingo to ignore such evidence or suppress it. These ground reports show that while Bergdahl actually escaped for 5 days, was chained in a cage and, like an animal, at later points he was observed to be on friendly terms, taking a target practice with them, and having declared himself...
What was the time frame, though? Was he on friendly terms in the beginning, and then he got disenchanted, tried to get away, or did he try to get away in the beginning and then got friendly terms?
The successful escape attempt where he was loose for 5 days occurred about a year into his captivity. It's the last of the situation reports we obtained from August 2012, so about a little less than 2 years before he finally was swapped in this deal, where he was reported to have declared for Mujaheddin, a warrior for Islam.
All right.
Could he have feigned this allegiance to survive? Sure. Did he fall prey to Stockholm Syndrome? Possibly.
Sure.
Was he earnestly committed to jihad? All of this is possible, especially given his prior emails, and it's part of the investigation, we presume, now underway by the Army. But it is not me, Bill, who rendered judgment. That came from Susan Rice, the National Security Advisor, who declared 6 days ago that Bergdahl had served with honor and distinction.
But that's just propaganda. You know, Ambassador Rice has lost all credibility with anybody. I mean, whatever she says, nobody believes. Last question here, and this is an important question. I have said that we have to give the sergeant the benefit of the doubt and his family. I mean, I think that's the fair thing to do. I think you have to report these things, but it's my job to challenge and try to put them into perspective. But here's the rub. It looks like they're setting up Bergdahl for a mental incompetency deal. all right, that he is kind of crazy. And that's what a crazy guy would do. First he'd try to escape, and then he would try to be their friend, and then he would be this, and then he would be that. So it might all fall into the same category. And indeed, the sergeant might be a mentally imbalanced guy. That's very possible. Last word.
I don't think this is a case of a canny operator, sort of like Jamie Farr on MASH, purposely cross-dressing in order to secure a discharge from the service. I think this is a genuinely confused individual. There are persistent reports that when he walked off his post, he was either drunk or high on hashish. There's a lot still to be discovered, and presumably at some point there will be a full, proper Article 32 investigation.
Okay, but you're presuming that in an administration that if it turns out that he's a real bad guy, it's really going to be curtains for President Obama. So I don't know if I'm going to presume that.
I have made no such presumption, but that's good of you to
use the word presume. Right now, the president's whole legacy is riding on this story. That's how important it is. His whole administration is riding on it. If it turns out that this guy was a collaborator, Rosen, you know what's going to happen. His administration is done. That's how big this story is. All right, we appreciate it.